Welcome to the report from Tiger Mountain, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk tonight about the lab leak theory going mainstream. Stick around and listen. The lab leak theory, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we're going to talk about that tonight. It's obviously gone mainstream. We've had the FBI and the Energy Department in America come out and say that that is most likely the cause of the recent COVID pandemic, you know what I mean? And, I'd like to thank them because, I actually got a ban in April 2020 when I did a video saying that exact thing. And apparently at the time that was disinformation, ladies and gentlemen. That was misinformation. I was fact-checked and I was removed from YouTube for posting such terrible conspiracy theories, which, as we now know, the US government is themselves saying. So it's very, very strange turn of events, but it's nice of them to agree with me. But I think a lot of people in the conspiracy community were suspicious that whatever COVID was did emanate from the the Wuhan virology lab, and it's just deeply suspicious. I think what's going on there. But look, I'd like to examine it a little further. Look, do I think, it's possible? Of course. I mean, the idea that somebody, ate a bat or a pangolin or whatever, and then at some wet market, that immediately seemed like a cover story from word go. I thought that was rubbish. I do think that's most likely the reason we had the COVID pandemic. The way the US government is now using it, it's like anything that goes mainstream I become suspicious of, and I think it's interesting the timing of it, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Because at the time, basically they're saying China caused it, the whole COVID thing was a bioweapon that emanated from China. That's what they're saying, basically, the US government. That's at the same time that China is in talks with Russia to back them in the Ukraine, right? To basically militarily back them. And obviously, if China and Russia team up, well, that gives the United States a hell of a headache. So, is it a kind of punishment? You know what I mean? Is it a kind of like, listen, we're going to go down this road, media-wise, and, make up this threat? So, I'm suspicious. And there was a very interesting Chinese, he's a member of the Chinese Communist Party, and he was one of their media spokespeople. I can't remember who it was or what his name was, but he came out and said, look, if, in relation to the accusation that came from the Wuhan lab, he said, you want the origin of COVID? He said, you shouldn't try the Wuhan virology lab, you should try Fort Detrick, which was the famous fort in the United States that's connected to bioweapons. So obviously the Chinese will just flip it and say, well, we didn't do it, it was actually something the Americans did. And that actually might have some truth to it, even though it's coming from a Chinese communist news source, ladies and gentlemen. There might be some truth that the Americans created it, because there seems to be so much complicity going on with World Health and all these vaccines and all this blah blah blah, that seems to me to point to at least elements within Western society, usually the globalists, were involved and knew what was happening. As we all know, there was that event at Johns Hopkins University just before it all happened, where they basically did Agenda 21, where they did basically a dry run of COVID, and then 2 weeks later, the virus is free in Wuhan. So it's all very suspicious, ladies and gentlemen, and, I think there is something very weird going on, and there's all kinds of, things going mainstream. You've got the lab leak theory going mainstream, and you've got Woody Harrelson, you know what I mean? He came on and did that wonderful talk on Saturday Night Live, basically red-pilling half of the audience of Saturday Night Live. So I think it's very interesting what's going on, and it's great to see these things go mainstream, but we still have to maintain our critical faculties and question, even when the mainstream begins to agree with us, as they just did with the lab leak theory. So that's my comments today on the report from Tiger Mountain. I hope you enjoyed them. Cheers.